Good afternoon. The primary focus of today's discussion is going to be on the methods and resources I will apply to my dissertation later on. The first source I found was in the Oxford Scholarship Online Database. It's entitled From Cold Harbor to the Crater, The End of the Overland Campaign. This is a series of essays that was edited by Dr. Gary Gallagher as well as Caroline Janey, both of whom are excellent Civil War scholars. In the first essay, Two Generals Who Resist Each Other, written by Dr. Gary Gallagher, it discusses the two titans of the campaign, Grant and Lee, but I tend to push this aside to focus more on the views and interpretations from the soldiers themselves. However, I run into many complex issues with these resources. Dr. Gary Gallagher also uses these resources. He uses soldiers' testimonies as well as northern newspapers to assess the morale as well as Grant's generalship. One such person was Colonel Robert McAllister, who acknowledged the high casualties that took place at Cold Harbor, but said that Grant will eventually succeed. But from a differing viewpoint, you have Elijah Hunt Rhodes, who called the assault on June 3rd a terrible battle, despite him being a part of the Sixth Corps. The reason why that's significant is because Sixth Corps did not even coordinate an attack with 2nd or 18th Corps, leading to absolute disaster in this assault, even though given orders by both Grant and Meade to do so. There were political rivalries within the Army of the Potomac. There were many soldiers that distrusted Western generals, hence Grant, but many did come to accept his generalship given his tenacity. So the overall issue that I face in my research is the primary focus of casualties. It's significant in that those casualties need to be taken into account to assess the overall result of this battle. But all too often, that result is narrow and doesn't take into the broad strategic aims of the operation as well as the overall strategy to defeat the Confederacy. So the second resource I use is a work entitled Moral Victories, The Ethics of Winning War. Again, this is a collection of essays, and the one that I primarily focus on is Karl von Clausewitz and Moral Victories. And Clausewitz states that he is aware of the victory at the purely military level. It's volatile and likely to be temporary. In war, the result is never final. Grant understood this even at Cold Harbor. The most honorable wars are a people's war, and if that war involves the entire emancipation of the slave, well, what is the cost of that? And I think that's an important question, again, to be answered, especially in the context of 1864 and 65 in an election year where the war depends upon this political victory. Therefore, let me now shift to the third resource, Trench Warfare under Grant and Lee, written by Dr. Earl Hess on page 211. Grant rightly summarizes his decision to go through with this bloody sanguine campaign. I was obliged to sacrifice men to do it. I have been called a butcher. Well, I never spared men's lives to gain an object, but then I gained it and I knew it was the only way. So thank you, and I look forward to listening to your discussion as well. Thanks.